This is democracy at its best. On July 26, 1990, after thousands of years of outcast status, the United States of America recognized people with disabilities as full members of the human race.
This is a law that has captured the hearts and minds and souls of the American people.
It establishes a legal framework for the rights of people with disabilities, something they didn't have 30 years ago.
It does open up doors that have been closed for centuries.
It's a huge landmark for importance for people with disabilities to understand the need for equality.
The ADA is incredibly important for folks with disabilities, primarily just to help level the playing field.
ADA is an insurance policy for those who do not yet have a disability, but like me can have it quickly, like I did when I had an automobile accident when I was 15 years old.
We must remove the physical barriers we have created and the social barriers that we've accepted.
When you look at the history of people with disabilities in this country, we've been marginalized. We were told that we had no value to society, that we couldn't contribute, that we weren't worth being out there, being visible on the streets. Many states and cities had what we call these ugly laws. Laws that said if you're a person with disability, you can't be visible on the street, you can't be seen in the street, you can't be employed, and you had to be marginalized and you had to be institutionalized. And what the Americans with Disabilities Act said was, we have value, that we have something to contribute in society, and our rights deserve to be protected, much like people of color, much like people of gender, and people of different religions.
Even Justin Dart, hearing his message, the civil rights message of the disability community, had a lot of influence going back in the 80s.
He was relentless. He went to every single state in the United States trying to get people on board with this idea of the Americans with Disabilities Act and its infancy and how it would impact folks.
You also came forward and came through with us and shared your scar tissue, in the words of Tony Coelho. You told us what it was like to be discriminated in if you were a person with disability in America.
The National Council on Disability has been, since its formation in 1983, working to ensure the rights of people with disabilities. As you may recall, in 1986, in a formative report, the National Council on Disability produced a recommendation that there be a law protecting the civil rights of people with disabilities and ensuring equal opportunity for us all. That recommendation was put into effect by the Congress and signed by President George Bush in 1990. It is now known as the Americans with Disabilities Act.
But it's the NCD that took the lead to say this is an issue that needs to be addressed. So that's why I think this organization has a powerful voice.
Our role is to sort of look at the landscape for people with disabilities and try to figure out, why are people not fully engaged?
And Congress and so many agencies really look to us for information to help shape policy.
The National Council on Disability was very instrumental in writing the first draft of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And it was that draft that was rewritten and refined to reflect what we have now in the Americans with Disabilities Act that President George H.W. Bush signed on July 26 in 1990.
On that day, we sent a simple yet powerful message heard around the world, that disability is a natural part of the human experience, that in no way diminishes an individual's fundamental right to fully participate in all aspects of society.
Let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down. God bless you all.
We're here to celebrate a law that is rich in its bipartisan underpinnings.
When you look back, though, isn't it wonderful that you had bipartisan support? Bipartisan support, Democrats and Republicans working together on the ADA.
If we think back of ADA, it wasn't all that easy. As many can remember, I think Paul and Mark can remember a certain night about midnight when there was one senator.
2 in the morning.
2 in the morning. One senator that just wasn't going to let this bill out of the committee and said when we had all the members there that we're going to stay to follow on through to maintain a quorum, and he opened up a long book, large book, and he just started reading right from the beginning. And so the senator thought that this was going to be the end of the ADA. And suddenly the room began to fill in, about 2:15 and about 2:30. And suddenly television cameras began to appear from nowhere. And at 3 o'clock there were 4 cameras. And at 3:30 there were 10 cameras. And then finally at about 4 he gave up.
We as a nation are literally being transformed. People with disabilities are assuming their rightful roles as independent, self-supporting, involved citizens.
On that day, we lit a beacon of hope for hundreds of millions of people with disabilities all around the world.
It takes federal legislation to sometimes guide the morals and values of a people, and that's certainly the case here. And so if there wasn't that federal leadership, if there wasn't the federal statute, chances are that people with disabilities would still not be able to come out of their houses, still not be able to live independent lives, still not be able to fulfill their dreams. And those dreams don't go away simply because you acquire a disability.
You know, as we take some time to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, we should celebrate and we should be happy. But we can't fail to remember that there's a lot of work left to be done. As long as there's any American with a disability who can't achieve the life they truly want for themselves, there's work to be done. As long as there's a place where people with disabilities are not accepted, or where they can't learn, or where they're not allowed to go, we have work to do. And I think that we need to lock arms, put our heads down, and continue to do the very hard work of freedom.